Okay, so the next thing we're going to learn about are shadows and shading. So we're going to start by drawing a simple tree. So I'm going to grab a rectangle, and this is going to be the trunk of my tree. And I'm going to color it kind of a brown. That's good enough. And take off the outline. And then the top of my tree is just going to be a cloud. So I'm going to grab a cloud and I'm going to make it some color green. Now, do not add any gradient colors on these because I want to show you how we can create our own shadows and shading. I'm going to take the line off of this as well. Okay, so there are two kind of techniques for creating shadows and shading. So remember, first of all, that you're always thinking about a light source. So if our light source is coming from up here, then these leaves up here are going to be lighter and these leaves down here are going to be darker. So one technique for creating shading is to find a shape that's already created that kind of mimics the shape that you're creating the shading, okay? So when I look at this looks like half moons to me. So I am going to go grab a half moon shape, and I'm just going to draw it really quickly because I know I'm going to have to make some adjustments here. And I'm going to put it like, I'm going to put it here. So I'm just having it kind of match the curve of the tree there. Okay. Now, usually we would get rid of the outline, and we are going to get rid of the outline on this, but we're not going to do it quite yet because what I'm going to do is change this moon shape to the exact same color as the tree, and it's going to kind of disappear if I take those lines off the outside. So what I'm going to do first is check the color of my tree. I used this green right here. So go check the color of your tree. Make sure you know which green color you used. Okay. Now I'm going to go to my moon shape and I'm going to make that the exact same color. And you can see how, oh, I guess the line did disappear. I'm going to put my line back on there just so I can see it a little bit better. Okay, so now I have a half moon shape in my tree. They're the exact same color. All right, so let's start working with this moon shape. And we want to create it so it's like some shading on our tree. So if our light source is up here, then this is going to be darker. So I click on this. I'm going to go to my paint bucket. Now, one option is just to click this darker green that's in this same column. That's obviously an option, but what I want to teach you to do is go to custom. All right, now we already played with this one, and this one creates transparency. You also have this column here, and this plays with the hue of the color that we're using. So if I grab this and I go a little bit darker and click OK, and then get rid of that line, now you can see how it almost looks like a little bit of shading. And then I can duplicate that. Remember, Control D, and change the shape of it for other areas, maybe a little bit thinner there, so that it starts to look like I've got some shading in my tree. I'll duplicate that again here. Okay, so that is one way to create some shading, is by using a shape that kind of mimics the shape that you're already using. I wanted to move that. I didn't want to make that thinner. So let's see how we're doing. So there you go. Okay, so that's one method. All right. The other method is, sometimes you're not going to have the exact shape that you want. So if we can't find a good shape that already exists, then we are going to make our own shape using something called polyline. Okay, so polyline is in the line tools, and if you use the drop down arrow next to the line tool, you will see polyline. Go ahead and click it once. Now, polyline is kind of crazy, okay? Remember that when we draw with lines, it gets a little bit funky. And so what we're trying to do with Polyline is to create our own shape. And the way we do that is we are going to click to start our drawing, then drag to a new place and click again to anchor it, and just keep doing that until we close the shape. So let's all just make a square right here. So I'm going to click once, I'm going to drag and then click to anchor, and then drag, click to anchor. Then I can drag here, click, drag, click, drag, click. And the main thing you want to do is make sure that you close the shape, meaning that you're going to end in the exact same place you finished. I'm going to click again, and then it should turn that light blue color, and basically you've created a shape. Now, notice your drawing tool is still active. So you've got to go and do your selection tool, and then this is going to act like a normal shape. You can color it whatever color you want. You can change the outline. Everything that you can do to a regular shape, you can do to a polyline shape. Okay. All right. So I'm going to delete that. So what we're going to do is we're going to use Polyline to create kind of some craggy lines down this tree that would kind of resemble bark. Okay, so I am going to grab my Polyline tool. Now, because I used Polyline tool before, it's already active, and all I have to do is just click on it. And I'm going to make some craggy shapes down the length of this trunk. So I'm going to click to anchor, drag, clicking and dragging. And remember, the main thing I want to do is make sure that I close this shape. Okay, so I have some craggy shapes drawn. I'm going to go back to my selection tool. Now, just like I did with the tree up here, I'm going to start by having this the exact same color as my tree trunk. So I'm going to check my tree trunk color, and it's the bottom color in the orange column. Okay, now I'm going to click on my new shape that I drew, and I'm going to make that the exact same color. Okay. Then I'm going to go back to the paint bucket, go to custom, and instead of making it darker, I'm going to make this one lighter. So I'm going to grab this scale and make it a little bit lighter. And I'm going to get rid of the outline. And now you can see how I can start to add some dimension and character to the things I draw. Okay. All right. Now, the other thing we can do, so that's shading, right? So let's talk about shadow a little bit. I am going to go ahead and grab another polyline, and I'm going to make a shadow off of this tree. So I'm going to start at the corner of the tree, and I'm going to drag out. Now, shadow cannot go on the sky, so do not take this into the sky, okay? So I'm going to go to the edge of my grass. I'm going to anchor, click again, and then I'm going to come back to my tree. And remember, I've got to close that shape, okay? And I'm going to make it like a grayish color. I'm going to get rid of the outline, and I'm going to make it slightly transparent. So I'm going to go custom, and I'm going to make it transparent. Okay, so there's my shadow. And then I'm going to put like a little red picnic blanket here. I'm going to go back to my regular shapes and grab a rectangle, and this is going to be like a picnic blanket. So I'm going to make that red, and maybe I'll put a big border on it, like a big blue and red is not a good color together. Maybe I'll go gold, and I'll make a big thick border on it like it's a really cool big picnic blanket. Okay. Now, I want you to think about, do shadows go on top of objects or behind them? So obviously I need to move this shadow forward, or I need to move my blanket back. So I'm going to click on my blanket, arrange, order, send backward. Okay. And that is shading and shadows.